win. I am down and willing, so I will find a way. It took a minute, now it didn't happen right away. When it get hot in the kitchen, you decide to stay. That's how it winners made. Stick a fork in the hater on my dinner plate. I walk into the fire like it's just a bit of flame. I switch my style up, watch the money pile up. I'ma get rich with life.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Clydesdale Media Podcast. My name is Scott Switch. I'm the Clydesdale. That man beside me is none other than coaching legend Justin Cotler. What's going on?
How are you, bud?
I'm good. So it's funny when I do these things, I run interviews through my head, like almost like when I was a swimmer. Like I would run through a race in my head before I did it. So whenever I'm doing an interview, I'm running things through my head. Last night, I'm watching America's Got Talent.
Okay.
At the very end of the show, a little 9-year-old girl came on, and she said that her influences were Aretha Franklin, Whitney Houston, and Tina Turner.
Wow,
said,
9 years old.
Oh my gosh. Does she know Justin Cotler?
She's got cool parents, apparently. That's awesome.
If you have not seen this girl perform, she was the last performer of the night.
Really?
She did Tina Turner almost as good as Tina.
Okay.
At 9 years old.
We'll have to watch it.
It was freaky.
That's awesome.
What blew me away is unless you have cool parents, how does a 9-year-old know Tina Turner?
Yeah, you'd have to think that that's the parental influence, and that's great. I mean, I think that, for me and my kids, like, it's funny. They have a vast repertoire of things they're listening to in the car, and it's cool because both of them actually will be like, hey, what are some of your favorite songs? And then I'll play them, and it's pretty cool. It's always fun too when like my daughter wants to listen to me, which is kind of cool. Like she'll be like, is that really you? Like, yeah, it is.
I love having music conversations with you.
Yeah.
And to me, like, Tina Turner is one of the most underrated.
100%.
In the 80s, when I was growing up, like, she was the shit.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy is people don't, most people know her, especially now, right? Like specifically from the 80s, but obviously Ike and Tina from years ago. I mean, she was absolutely incredible, and then we all know what happened there and years of abuse, etc. But I mean, the music was amazing. And then she completely changed her vibe and, kind of went more pop rock and roll and was amazing at that too. Yeah, she was a hell of an artist.
She was still one of my favorites to this day, and sad that she's gone now, but man, nobody commanded a stage like that woman.
Yeah, no, she was amazing. She was even later in life, she was still amazing and incredible physique, and it's awesome.
Yeah, amazing. Well, we'll get back. Let music take us a sidetrack here for a little bit and get into some CrossFit stuff.
Cool.
Coach Sir Moose. Justin was so gracious when my wife and I introduced ourselves to him outside our hotel after the 2022 MAC semifinal in Knoxville. Still have the photo.
Cool. Well,
that's how Justin is, man.
I try.
He is. Yeah. I think sometimes you get mislabeled as this like madman because of the way you cheer on the sidelines, how emotional you get when your athletes are on the floor. But like, if people get to know you away from that 3 minutes of that event or that 10 minutes of that event, that is not you at all.
No. Yeah. I think I think it's fun I think it's fun, right? Content wise, when people catch me, I'm passionate and I'm intense in that moment, obviously. And, I kind of wear my emotions on my sleeve. And so I think that's what people see. I'm generally not like that. I'm actually pretty mild mannered and mild tempered, like on a daily basis. But I do get fired up, obviously, about things I'm passionate about. And obviously when I'm cheering for my crew, or coaching, etc. I can get fired up. Obviously there was that video. I had no idea that anyone was videoing it, but from quarterfinals where Alex was jumping, doing burpee box jump overs, and they caught me at the end of that workout. And it's really funny too, because we just didn't even know what good times were at that time. And her time ended up being good, but it wasn't like incredible, right? But in our gym, she was just like smashed everyone, and I just thought it was this phenomenal time, and also it's just like traditionally not a workout that I would necessarily say would be phenomenal for her. So like, she crushed it, and then of course, like next thing you know, that went viral, and everyone's like, this guy's crazy. And it's like, no, I'm not normally like, but yeah, it's okay.
What I hate about quarterfinals is generally quarterfinals are programmed very well because it has to be.
Yeah.
When you're threading from a large 25% now to 40 athletes per region, it better be balanced. It better be well-rounded, and to get the people there. And I thought it had some of the coolest events this year, and we never get to see it because it's online.
Yeah, I know. And it also is frustrating to me that there should be no stage of the season that athletes don't get paid. And the fact that there's no prize purse for quarterfinals is ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You're having them do perhaps the most important stage of the year, where you're cutting this massive field down, and there's no prize purse. I mean, that's just I could go on.
We're going to get into a little bit of the season structure and some of that stuff later in this show.
Yeah.
But I would be irresponsible if I didn't bring this up.
Yeah, of course.
You are a magnet for stuff happening a month out of the games.
Yeah, it just seems to be that way, huh? I know.
So
crazy.
Your right-hand man, the head of programming, Keifer, and I can never get his Lamy.
It's Lammy.
Lammy.
Like lamb, like you're like lamb. Yeah, gotcha. Lammy.
So Keifer Lammy took a job with Proven and left you a week ago, 2 weeks ago now. And then
actually, I mean, I knew about it. I found out about it maybe 5 days after the North America East. Yeah, that's when he told me. So I've known for a little bit. The Proven announcement was a few weeks after.
Okay.
Yeah, but I've known now. It's been it's been a month, I would say. Yeah.
So when you get news like that, and I've seen you at semifinals, so correct me if anything like this has changed. Sometimes
sure.
You tag team those things, right? You have athletes, like hypothetically, not even hypothetically, you have Ricky and you have Alex. You're going to go to the games.
Yeah.
Ricky may be on the floor as Alex needs warmed up, or vice versa, right? And so it almost takes two coaches to do that.
Yeah, in the last couple of years, we've had more than two coaches, and I think things have evolved. I think, when things, obviously, when we first started and I was coaching, pretty much all the games athletes, and then Keifer would assist and help where he needed to. And then obviously as he's evolved as a coach and taken more responsibilities and started coaching games athletes, there was less of I would say, of kind of the collaboration at events, because we were responsible for our own athletes. And obviously, when that happens, then we're looking to say like Brendan or Casey or someone else to help with those other things. Or in Ricky's case, Benny, right? Because and Benny is an Underdogs coach as well. So more recently, like, at the games last year, Keifer had Bailey, and then at Rogue, I had Alex and Ricky, and he had Bailey. And then obviously at semifinals this year, he had Kyra, and he had the team. There was one of the teams that he was coaching. And then he also had Kendall, who was a teenager that had made the, semis. And then I had Alex and then the other team. So we kind of split responsibilities. But I would say that more recently, just because of the amount of athletes, the number of athletes that we have, we were more, responsible specifically for those athletes. In the past, Absolutely. There was a ton of collaboration, but as he kind of, started coaching more and more elite athletes, there was less of that collaboration during competition, and it was more kind of exclusive. We were exclusive to our athletes.
So when something like this happens, how quickly do you have to act and find his replacement? And how did that, was Casey the immediate choice?
Yeah, Casey was the immediate choice. I mean, that was without question. Casey, first of all, I mean, aside from, everybody knows him he's one of the best CrossFit athletes in the world. Obviously he's a 3-time games champion, and, he's won a ton of other competitions, massive competitions, big competitions. But just a phenomenal coach, great human being. He's one of the coaches who's been with us the longest. Like when I started to bring on, remote coaches, he was one of the first guys that I interviewed, and just so impressed with him, and his vast knowledge of programming and sport in general, and then obviously his competitive experience in the sport, is pretty, unrivaled. And then, he's just a good dude. So it was kind of a no brainer. It was a natural progression. And he's been helping out with some of the programming, that we've been doing, and also kind of came up with some like testing blocks and things like that. So, he's great at what he does. And honestly, like, I think that part of it will be a very seamless transition. So yeah, when I was told, that was pretty much the next call that I made, right away, was just to make sure, because, we want to make sure that we're serving our community the way that they deserve to be. And I think it's been a seamless transition. I don't think, unless there was, aside from the announcement, I don't think anyone would know, and the truth is, like, this is for us now, it's like a great time to reset and just create even more continuity in the online programming, and just tighten the ship a little bit. I think it's always when these things tend to happen, that's what you do. You kind of look within and just make sure that you're doing the best that you can for your people, and then obviously for your community, because we have a wide ranging community of athletes and coaches all over the world. So, it's important that we make sure everybody is thriving.
Yeah. Casey's, one of the best dudes I've ever met in my life. Like,
yep.
He's just,
yep.
Yeah. Aces, I guess, is the best way I could put it.
Yeah. It's just as solid as what you see is what you get. He's just an awesome dude.
So, it's great to have consistency, but it's also great to get fresh eyes on something.
Mm-hmm.
And so, how has that helped the program, having Casey come in and kind of get some fresh eyes, some things? And the follow-up to that is he staying in Illinois, or is he going to dabble in Vegas a little bit?
Yeah. So, I think what it does really is it's just, it's been good for us as a group, because it's essentially been like, okay, myself, Casey, Colette, Brendan, like, the crew, just really communicating a ton and being like, okay, this is what we want to make sure happens, and this is what we want to make sure, we're providing. So I think in general, it's just really good. Like I said, it's almost like it, kind of lights a little fire under your ass, just to make sure that things are running properly, and that you're providing what you need to, the best product possible. And as far as, we haven't really touched on that. Obviously a lot's been going on, and the games is coming up, et cetera. So, Casey generally gets out here a couple times a year, in the past, but, that might change, and we might, but he's got a family too, so that's a little bit different. It's always a little bit different when you add kids in the mix, so he's got a family, and ultimately, like, whatever is best for him is ultimately what I want to do. But it's interesting. It really, I feel like I have had the experience now over the last several years since we started Underdogs, where we went from small camp to big camp back to now kind of smaller camp. And so I've been able to kind of, experience everything. And I have a pretty good idea of exactly what I want. And obviously, I'm this situation was a surprise, and I mean, but it is what it is. And now you've got to, you got to move forward. You got to put your big boy pants on and make sure that everybody is getting what they need. And obviously, like our goal is to continue to grow the brand and continue to, but I'd say for our in-house crew, I think we'll probably tighten things up and it'll be a bit more exclusive in-house. I've I've had it both ways in-house, and I really like a little bit smaller in-house camp. I just think it's more manageable, and I think the athletes respond a little bit better. I just think it can get a little bit crazy if you got a ton of athletes, and so that, and neither one is right or wrong per se. I just think that kind of knowing where we are now and being able to really kind of keep it tight and then have people come and visit and things like that, which are great. But I would say right now I'm leaning more towards that.
So this is my last question about this situation. Cause
Sure.
I don't, if there wasn't a big announcement, I don't think anybody would even know.
Yeah.
Right. And just like you said, but
yeah,
what I want to ask is, a couple of years ago when we were out there was a thought that you were going to own your own affiliate and kind of open your own camp. And then you kind of went away from that model. And
Yep.
You're hanging out at Camp Rhino. Well, from what I've heard, Keifer isn't moving. So is there anything that's going to be put in place, or a change of scenery or anything like that to kind of avoid that?
Yeah, so there already has been. The Camp Rhino has 2 locations. Camp Rhino has a south location and a north location. We were already spending time kind of split because Alex lives 2 minutes from the north location and 40 minutes from the south location. And the south location tends to be it's the bigger one, and it's where, most of the people are training. So we have, basically decided, like Ricky, Alex, and, a few of the, a few others, that we're going to train pretty much exclusively up north. I just think, it's smoother that way, and I think that ultimately, just a little bit less tension, a little less weirdness. Listen, I wish Keifer the best, but he went to one of our biggest competitors, and I don't necessarily want to be in the same gym as someone who's, maybe feeding results and times and things to other people. And, and I'm sure he feels the same way. So, the way that I feel about it is ultimately like, it seems like a better situation that way. We're not stepping on any toes, and, there's no tension at all. And so ultimately, this is and the gym is phenomenal. Like the north location is great. Alex is, happy because it's a couple minutes from her house. Obviously, Ricky is staying with her, so it's incredibly convenient. And what's good for me is I'm actually like right between the two, so I'm about 20 minutes from north, 20 minutes from south, so it doesn't really matter. And we owned a lot of the equipment that was in south, a lot, the pig and the handstand ramps and some machines and things like that. So it just brought some of those things over, things that we need. And then we'll see how it shakes out after the games. Obviously, I'd love to have access to both gyms. And I'm not sure exactly what, their plan is over there. But I have a great relationship with the owners. They're massively team Alex, which is awesome. Cause she used to coach for them. And, so they're obviously big time in her corner, and they're just great people. And I think they appreciate us being there. We appreciate them. And, it's been a very symbiotic relationship. And I think it will continue to be so. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the way that it's been. over the last week or so, you know, since we started to kind of migrate some stuff over. And yeah, so that's what we'll do. We'll train there for the games. And, you know, because ultimately, I mean, the way that I look at it is, you know, underdogs is Las Vegas. You know, that's just the way that I see it. And so ultimately, like, you know, do whatever you want over there. That's totally cool. But yeah, I don't necessarily have to be a part of it. So that's the way I look at it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, I want to move on to your athletes. We got the games coming up pretty, actually I got so many comments. Julia Reed, we are team Alex too.
Me too.
Sarah Cooper, please don't let Ricky do anything in the next month where he can hurt himself so he can show up for the games healthy.
Sarah, yeah. Most of the biking's being done on a Bike Oregon and Echo bike. So we'll have to do a couple of road bike pieces, he and Alex, but it'll be on, you know, flat ground on the road, and it'll be around their house. And I don't necessarily think we're going to see that at the games. I just don't know that they're going to be able to do that with, you know, the heat and the you know, terrain. I mean, it would be great if they did. Obviously, Ricky usually wins those events, but I just don't, you know, he's so good on a bike already. He doesn't have to spend a lot of time on a bike. So we'll probably do one or two of those pieces.
What do you take from Dave's interviews where he keeps asking people if they like cycling in the games?
I don't, you know, Dave, he likes to throw people off. I don't take what he says. You know, I think Dave is he plays a lot of mental warfare. You know, he throws you off. He does this, does that. I mean, you listen to it. And if it's there, great. But you know, let's be honest, you know, unless they really, and I just don't see it happening. I think you're going to see a significantly less amount of outdoor workouts. You have to. I mean, just for the safety of the athletes, the heat index down there is wild. Like, you look at it and, you know, I mean, you're talking about, you know, it's well over 100 degrees, you know, and the humidity is outrageous.
I do agree with you. But
yeah.
Every time I think that, I think they made them run in 117 degrees in Vegas at the West Coast Classic.
Yeah. That's true.
Do one workout here, one workout there. And I don't think it had, I mean, some people wilted in the heat. I will say that, but the people who were strong did well.
Yes. And historically, you know, listen, historically, it's probably about a 50-50 split indoor outdoor, or maybe even a little bit more outdoor, but there's no way that's going to happen. But even if it's 20%, you know, I mean, that makes a difference. I mean, if you've got 12 to 15 events and we're doing 2 or 3 of them outdoors, that makes a big difference, you know? So you have to do some heat prepping. And boy, oh boy, I don't know if you've looked at the temperatures in Vegas right now, but man, it is freaking brutal here. Like, it's like walking outside into an oven. I don't remember it ever being this hot. Man, I'm just getting older. It's brutal outside right now. So Ricky got off a plane because, you know, in Australia it's winter. He got off a plane on Monday, and the first thing he said to me, he's like, "Bro, this is so hot." I'm like, "Yeah, get ready, baby."
Yeah.
So,
I saw Yella this morning on Savan, and he said the heat, to acclimate to the heat, he puts his bike erg in the sauna.
Yeah,
and that's what he's been doing to just try to get acclimated to the heat and do some workouts.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really.
But then you don't have the sun on you. That's a little different.
That is true.
Because the sun beating down on you is a different animal. It can be hot, but if the sun's not beating on you, it's not quite. And then you add that in, and it's a different animal completely. And the sun here is just brutal. So yeah.
So I want to talk about Ricky and Alex.
Yeah.
You know, you have 2 athletes that have the potential to both podium.
Yeah.
Some might even say potential to win. Maybe not this year. Maybe Ricky definitely this year. I think this is the deepest men's field I put that poll question out today. The deepest men's field we've ever seen.
Agreed.
Anybody from like 1 to 8 could win the games.
I agree.
And then you have Alex, who, you know, if Tia's not there, she has a shot as much as anybody.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So how excited are you to take these 2 studs to the games in a couple weeks?
Yeah, it's an incredible. I'm just lucky. I feel like, I feel like very blessed, and aside from them just being great athletes, they're just such cool people, and my relationship with them is so special, and I feel like as I mature and evolve as a coach, you just you cherish those relationships that you have with your athletes, especially the ones that that really just become family. And both of them, Alex and Ricky, that's the way our relationship is, and it's easy, and it's I just think it's very special. So I think that means even more when you look at it that way, because you like to see good things happen to good people, and I consider both of them just incredibly good people. But yeah, it's exciting, man. It's exciting, and it's also I would say it's a bit stressful because you have expectations. You want to be able to help them achieve their goals and live up to those expectations, and so obviously there's a bit of pressure, but pressure is a privilege, right? I mean, it really is. If there are expectations and pressure, that means you're doing something right. So ultimately, for the two of them, we're just trying to prep them the best we can. I think more than ever, I'm extremely conscious of everything that they're doing, like every single day, what we're doing, programming wise, volume wise, recovery wise. It's just so important leading up to the games to go into the games as close to 100%, physically and mentally prepared as possible. If you go in and you've got a little shoulder thing going on, or you've got a little back thing, or, those things tend to be exacerbated so much at the games because of the volume, because of the lack of sleep, the schedule. Sometimes Dave will wake them up at 3 a.m. and you don't know what they're, it's just things that you have to be prepped for. So you've got to be ready physically and mentally, and you got to be as healthy as humanly possible. So everybody talks about games training. I think it's very easy to go overboard with games training. You have to ride the line, you have to prepare for volume, but you've got to do it intelligently, because you can't just do volume for volume's sake. There has to be intention in every single thing that you're doing. And that's why it's a nerve-wracking time for me, because I go over it over and over and over. And I just, I'm tweaking and constantly just making sure that I'm completely happy with everything that they're getting and everything that they're doing. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't be happier with who I'm going to be there with. And I think we both have a little extra motivation after the last couple of weeks, to be honest, which is great. I mean, yeah, I'll take it. Any little thing that you can kind of put a little chip right up here. I always say, going into competition, ain't nothing wrong with that. So,
Yeah, I lived on chips when I was an athlete, but
yeah,
you bring up an interesting point for me, because back in the Froning Kalipa days, right? It was volume for volume's sake, like work out all day, get ready. And how has coaching changed in the last 5 years to mitigate the injuries at the games, to mitigate going in with a bum shoulder?
yeah, I think you could get away with that for a little while. And I think back in the day, and maybe, I feel like there's probably still a few athletes out there that train that way, and just do, kind of classic CrossFit all the time. But I think you see now, especially with kind of like the more, I would say, and it's crazy to think it's only 10 years ago. I mean, a little bit,
Yeah.
I'd say the modern day CrossFit athlete, like what we've seen probably in the last 6 years, maybe a little longer than 6 years, but really I would say that. I mean, there's so you're seeing very different style of programming. You're seeing a lot of work that's done, specifically in specific modalities. that's not, I would say, traditional CrossFit, without getting into the minutia of it, but ultimately, I mean, I think that you have to do that now, in order to stay healthy. I think you've got to do that in order to be strong. I think you're seeing a ton of time spent with recovery modalities, obviously physiotherapists, but also, Alex, goes to this incredible recovery facility called Project Wellbeing here in Vegas, and for red light and oxygen and cold plunge and sauna and just different modalities they have there, different machines that they have there, different things for like functional bodybuilding, different things that we do there, like to test body mechanics to make sure we're working on imbalances and things. So I think you're seeing the sport progress. I think you're seeing the sport progress. I think you're seeing people who are a bit more scientific or, kind of looking at it. And that's not to say you take away like the feel of it and the soul of it. We're not going like straight analytics like baseball, right? But ultimately it's, you've got to grow, and you've got to, I think people are just getting better at it. And so you're seeing what the athletes are able to do, and it just defies logic, but between their aerobic capacity and their strength numbers and their ability to do, high skilled body weight movements. I wouldn't say high skilled gymnastics, because that's still not necessarily the case. We think a muscle up is high skill, and that's not even a scored movement, and on the rings for the boys. That's how you get into them. But ultimately, like, it's I mean, the evolution of the sport's just been crazy, to see the numbers. I mean, I think about when I competed in 2012, and if you snatched over 200 pounds as a man at that time, like, that was really impressive. And obviously we now know what the numbers are, and it's just wild to see the evolution. And I'm interested to see where it's going to go from here. It just continues every year. I mean, it's just incredible to see. So yeah, I think everyone is just getting better. And I think that's, athletes, coaches, et cetera. And I think if you're not, you're kind of getting left behind.
So I'm going to clean up a couple of these comments. Speaking of high snatch numbers, John Young, about to feed that dog. And that was in response to the chip on your shoulder, I think.
Yeah, John's a good dude. I like John.
And then Wad Zombie, Justin, who was the better vocalist, Freddie Mercury or Marvin Gaye?
Oh, come on, man. That's not fair. I mean, that's like the Mount Rushmore of vocalists, and one's an R&B vocalist and one's a rock vocalist. I would put them in the top 3 on both sides. I know I'm riding a fence here, and I know he probably wanted an answer, but I would say for me personally, on the rock side, Freddie Mercury, Robert Plant, and Chris Cornell are probably my 3 favorites. And then on the R&B side, it's Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, and Donny Hathaway. Those would be my 3 favorites. So I'm kind of looking at the holy trinity of those, both sides.
That's what I love about you. Just throw out a question, man, and you give like, you expand on it to a point where I just love it. So we just had semifinals. How much data do you garner from semis? Or is it at this point, with the 2 athletes you have, and you have others too, but I'm focusing on Alex and Ricky right now. With those 2 athletes, is it just another step, or is there data there that you can like garner from their performance?
It was absolutely data. Yeah. We go through every single event, honestly, every single movement in every event with a fine-tooth comb. We talk about, were we able to execute the strategies, that we had in place? If not, what broke down? And you're able to pull from, I think, from every event, whether it's positive or negative. And when I say negative, I would say even negative is positive, because ultimately you're learning and you're just becoming better. So you're able to put that into programming and tweak some things. And you know, I think obviously, I think both performed well for the most part. I think obviously the goal was for both to win, and you know, I think you know, Ricky won, so obviously we feel moderately satisfied with that. I know there was one or two events there that he, you know, hopes to clean up. And Alex, I think, was, you know, honestly was pissed off. I don't think Alex was pleased at all, and I was kind of pissed off too. I think both of us left there just, you know, I feel like second place just kind of feels like kissing your sister. You know what I mean? It's like not, you know, it's nice, I guess.
Do
Kiss
you
her on
think
the
that
cheek.
field's getting deeper, or is it just because it seemed to me like it was Alex is the home run hitter
Yeah.
and Abby was the consistent.
Yeah, I think that just the consistency that we thought we would have on a couple of those events just wasn't there. And, you know, I think she was way too timid on the first event. And if you watched it, she was in like 18th place in her heat after the first round, and then had to battle all the way up. And I think finished 8th in her heat and 11th overall, but was totally fine after the event, and realized like the strategy was to go out fast and run with the leaders and then hang on to a spot. And she got boxed in, got someone, you know, was kind of blocking her on the stairs, and instead of karate chopping someone's arms and getting by him, I mean, listen, it's competition. You got to do that. Alex is nice, but sometimes she's too nice, and she'll admit it. You know, she got boxed in on the stairs and didn't fight to get through them and got stuck. And, you know, so that 11th place finish, you know, was definitely something that should have been somewhere closer to 6th or 7th, I would say. And then on the snatch workout, you know, it wasn't going to be a great event for her. And when I say a great event, obviously you're talking about, you know, sub 5 minutes, sub 6 minutes, right? But she went a minute faster in practice, and she got no repped. She didn't miss. She got no repped by the judge on the 9th rep of the first 10 snatches for not standing up all the way. And it totally rattled her, and it changed the whole vibe. She became incredibly cautious. She started taking considerably more rest before it. And then you saw what happened. You know, I mean, you come in 23rd, and there you go. So, you know, ultimately, we know that, you know, snatching is not her best, but at the same time, I mean, you're talking about that. I still think people don't, you know, they kind of have this image that she can't snatch, and that's just really not the case. I mean, you know, she snatches close to 200 pounds. She's considerably more consistent, and we just haven't shown it in competition. And until you show it in competition, no one gives a shit about you talking about it. So that was the whole thing drawing from that, was like, listen, you got to still attack. Even when something like that happens, you can't let a judge affect you in that way. You know, and I think, you know, something like that was 23rd, that probably should have been, you know, 12th or 13th, and then she wins, you know, the competition. So I think that that's something, like I said, that we can draw from. And obviously Abby did a phenomenal job, you know, but I'll be honest, when Alex shows up at a competition, you know, our expectation is to win. That's it, you know? So, you know, and I think everyone obviously understands how good Tia is. When we talk about the games, we know that she's the favorite, you know, but there's no question that, you know, we feel like, you know, she's getting to that place where it doesn't matter what's programmed, like it, and that's where you're working towards. And we're getting closer, we're getting closer, we're getting closer. We're not quite there yet, but I think within the next year or two, you know, that's going to be the situation. It just doesn't matter. You know, you become what I like to call bulletproof, and that's the goal.
And I love that term, but the question I have for you is, with Alex, because her confidence isn't there on the snatch, or like if she messed up a legless rope climb, like she knows that's her
Yeah.
jam, and she's not going to get rattled.
Yep.
Right. Is it just because that snatch is her weakness that she lets it rattle her?
Yes.
And then my follow-up to that is, are you glad she was pissed off?
Yeah. Hell yeah. I would have been worried if we had left there and she would have been like, oh, I punched my ticket to we weren't there to punch our ticket to the games. I mean, like, you know, we were there to win. You were there to make a statement. She made a statement in 2 events. You know, she set a world record, and she finished, you know, and then the other one, she came in second in the world. You know, those 2 workouts. We're looking to make a statement in everything. And ultimately, when you don't do that, I think you leave there feeling unsatisfied. And that's what you want. Let's be honest. Like if an athlete is satisfied, that is the most dangerous thing to an athlete. Like feeling fulfilled or feeling satisfied or you do not want that. You look at the best athletes in the world, and when they win a competition or they win a championship, what are they doing? They're talking about the next one. They're talking about repeating. They're talking about winning 3 in a row, 4 in a row. And that's where you want to get to. And that's the blessing and the curse of being a great athlete, because you're rarely ever satisfied. But the best in the world are rarely ever satisfied. And that's key. If you want to be the best in the world, you better not be satisfied, or else you can get your ass handed to you by people who aren't.
Meredith Vogel Thomas. That's why I sneak up on friends in the gym to no rep them during WODs, just building up their mental game.
I like that.
So John has a great question, John Young, about Ricky. And that is, does Ricky have trouble holding on to his squat strength stamina after getting running back fast, and vice versa? One squat event at Rogue, I was crazy impressed, but he wasn't as fast. Semis opposite.
Yeah, that's a great question, John. I think in Ricky's case, it is a very slippery slope. Like I can tell you that at Rogue, after Rogue was over, first thing he said to me was, man, my squats felt good, but damn, I just felt heavy. Felt my legs felt heavy. I felt like I couldn't move. I felt like I couldn't run. So the rest of the season was really trying to balance between the two. And I think ultimately for Ricky at the games, it's more important that he feel fast, and he's going to be strong. But what's more important for him at the games is more like squat volume, feeling really good about moving a barbell, but moving it multiple times for reps. And listen, he's pretty strong right now. Just, he's pretty easily last week before he left to come here, clean and jerked, 355 without any issue, snatching around 290, 285, 290. That's plenty strong for the CrossFit Games. And then, his running numbers right now are just terrifying. So, that's more important to me. But we'll see. We'll see, because, we'll see what Dave has planned. We'll see if the change of moving into Dickey's arena changes things. You're hoping that you're still getting 3 or 4 running events like in the past, or cycling, or, some weird things in there. Man, I just love to see the normal, kind of odd object, strange, funky movements you got to figure out on the fly. Just feel like those things to me are such a huge part of the cachet of the games and what makes someone the fittest. You got to be able to figure some shit out on the fly. I just hope that not every event is classic CrossFit. You think we had that for the Open. We did that in quarters. I'd love to see it progress and evolve, and I'm hoping they're going to have some really fun, funky stuff planned for us. Obviously some traditional, but then I'd love to see some cool new stuff.
So with Ricky, when you're out on when we were out on Orange Park, right, everything is spread out. So transitions and actual running ability play a factor.
Yeah.
Does moving inside hurt him?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, you look at semifinals, he did pretty well. You know what I mean? I think it's going to depend on events. He's got a lot of home runs. So obviously if those are in the workouts, if you're indoors, but you're getting a pegboard or a, legless rope climb, or you're getting a, handstand obstacles, things like that he's, really, really good at, obviously, ring muscle ups and this and that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see. I'd like to think we're at the point now that he's just good enough that he's going to be there. I think one of the things that we probably, it just depends on the programming a little bit at the beginning. Back in 22, obviously that bike workout was first, so he got off to a hot start. I'm curious to see what the first event will be. It's always, usually something a little bit funky. But we'll see. I think the thing for Ricky, and he'll even readily admit this, is, you know, Ricky is a really good front runner, and he feels really good, you know, when he's in front. He's got a lot of energy. He's got you know, we don't know what the program is going to be. I think you're going to see a lot of leaderboard fluctuation on the men's side. And I think you got to be mentally tough. And one of the things that makes me feel like he can be and will be is if you saw his comeback at Rogue this past year, where he was, was he in like 30th after day one or something and finished second, right? Like in the final day, I think he had, you know, 2 wins and a third or something like that. So it's in there, you know, so we can draw off of that experience and say, hey, you know, even if you're, you know, not in the lead after day 1 or day 2, like we're there, we're in striking distance, and, you know, you can do it. So, you know, that's important. But yeah, I don't know. I think we're all really curious as to what, you know, Dickies is gonna bring.
So I'm going to ask you one last games question, and I'm going to hit you with some quick hitters.
Cool.
What I appreciate about you is you never give me the stock answer. So what has to happen at the games for Alex and Ricky for you not to leave pissed off?
I think, and this is kind of a stock answer, but it's true. No, I think ultimately, like, you can only control what you can do. And so ultimately, like, if we go there and we feel like we're not giving points away, but here's the thing: if I feel like if they go and they execute and they don't give points away, they're both going to be really happy about where they finish. I mean, ultimately, like that to me is because they're both really fucking good. So, you know, you could say that about somebody else and that person could finish 18th. Like, that's not going to happen with Ricky and Alex. You know what I mean? Like, if they go there and they have a good weekend and they, you know, don't make mental mistakes and they don't give points away and they run through the finish line and not you know, and they don't screw up a transition, they don't forget to move a pylon, like they do the things that you need to do to execute, they're both going to do really well, you know? But listen, I mean, I don't think there's any question that we're going there to improve upon what we've done in the past. And in the past, Ricky's finished 3rd at the games and Alex has finished 5th. And I think both of them want to smash that. I don't think both of them want to go and not feel like they're progressing. So, I mean, you know, I think you can take both of those answers and then I think you can, you know, kind of extrapolate from that. You know, we're looking to do some serious fucking damage. I mean, I'll put it that way for sure.
So John Young translated that to Ricky winning, Alex podium.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously that both of them in their minds that's in their minds that's what they think is possible and is also like that's the goal for sure.
And just because John has to poke the bear, his prediction is Ricky winning, Alex 4th.
Yeah, and I saw his predictions and I felt like he was very fair in what he said. And I'll be honest with you, you know, I think that certainly Ricky is in the mix to win. But there's no way that we are taking any of the other dudes lightly. I mean, you know, I think what Jeff and what Roman did last year obviously was incredibly impressive. I think we know that Pat and Brent are most likely going to be there. And then I think you see some of these other guys that, you know, like, I mean, obviously Dallon's coming and Hopper looks primed and, you know, I mean, never can count out Lazar in specific events. And I mean, there are the men's field is special. It's special. It's deep. That's not to say the women's isn't. I just mean the parity there is incredible. And
when we do the spin poll, like it is so hard on the men's side.
Yeah,
it is so hard.
Yeah, it is. And I think on the women's side, listen, I think you would be an asshole, you know, if you didn't admit that, you know, Tia's the big favorite. I mean, that's obvious. But you also understand that in sports, anything can happen. And it usually does, you know, so you've got to go there with the anticipation that like, hey, listen, like she's going to do what she does, but I've got to make sure I put my best foot forward. I can't just assume that she's going to do this or that, or assume she's going to win. You can't just give it to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I mean that's and I love the fact that I look at, obviously I'm a data guy, and you look at the global leaderboard, and obviously there's some workouts there that I look out for Alex, and I'm like, okay, we know that one we need to improve, and especially on the snatch one. But after that was over, the first thing I did was I pulled up 2016, which was the last time they did that at a semifinal. And I looked up Tia. Tia did that workout, I think, in like 8:29. So she did it in about 20 seconds slower than Alex. And she finished second at the games that year. So just because you didn't smash that snatch event, it don't mean shit at the games. You look at, and so it was important to show Alex that. Tia was also 22 years old, which is exactly what Alex is this year. She's 22. So, and then I also said, and look at the progression. This year, Tia finished it in 5:01. She's 30 years old. It's very different. So she went from 8:30 to 5:01 in 3.5 years. In 8 years, 3.5 minutes. I said, so don't let that shit get you down, because we're getting better and better and better all the time. And this is the woman who was the best in the world, who at 22 was 20 seconds slower than you. So, don't be upset about that. There's a lot you can draw from that.
Yeah, totally agree. And I love the way you put that. So is Braun going to the Masters games?
Yes.
These are the quick hitters. So he's going. You going to be there?
I hope so. I have three that are competing. So I have Braun, I have Shannon Schliefer, and she's in the 50 to 54. She was 7th in semis, and then an Angel Cardenas, who's in 45 to 49. So I coach 3 Masters, and I would love to go. It just it just depends on wife and kids and timing, et cetera. So it's not easy to leave the family, man. It gets harder and harder, so I got to really pick and choose my spots. But I'm holding out hope I may be able to make it there.
Well, cool. Cuts released yesterday, the schedule. Yeah. You good with cuts? Hate cuts?
I don't hate cuts. I kind of wish that it was 40-40 the first 2 days, and then 30-30 the second 2 days. I would like for it to stay at 30, because I still think that you've got athletes that are at, as low as the high 20s that can affect the leaderboard, that are specialists in specific events that can affect the leaderboard those last 2 days, where the point values are crazy. There's massive fluctuations because of the point values. And I still think that that there are athletes that go down that deep that can make a difference. But I'm not like over the top upset or happy either way.
Yeah. I believe if you had the right 40 athletes at the games, you wouldn't need cuts, because then the 40 field would be good enough to have an impact.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I think you could also say that about a lot of sports, right? Look at like track and field and swimming, and if you had all the sprinters from the United States against there's probably a 1 or 2 or 3 guys from various other countries, and then the entire U.S. team but they're only taking 3 guys, and same thing with swimming, so. But I agree with you.
Same thing over and over through the cuts.
What's that?
You do the same event over and over again through the cuts, right?
Yes, you do. I agree.
This changes, right?
Yes.
And has impact when we get to what is programmed when and where during the games.
It does, but you also have I also do understand and recognize the importance of globalization and visibility outside of this.
Golf and tennis globalize and not an Olympic fashion, right?
Well, in the Olympics, tennis is in the Olympics and golf is in the Olympics. So you're seeing people from various places. But yes, I do understand what you mean. Like on the tour
of the sport, right?
Yeah.
You on the tour in other countries.
We're at Grand Slams.
The best athletes get to play.
Yeah, I do understand that. Yes.
Right.
I get
that makes more sense for globalization to inspire people in those countries than to let someone go to the games and get hammered.
It does, but I also think that when you see somebody who looks like you and who talks the way you do in that language and they're able to represent you, that's special for a lot of people. But I don't disagree with you. I do think obviously that we see that there's some vast differences in ability between the regions, and I think that what would be better would be to really take a hard look at the worldwide rankings and then, to figure out a way to divvy up those spots to where you'd still get representation, but just maybe not as much representation, right? I think like if you get one spot, great. You don't necessarily deserve 3, or, you get 2 spots, but you don't necessarily deserve 4. I think obviously those are things that are, we need to discuss and figure out.
The worldwide rankings are a joke. And Carolyn Prevost has put this out on our show that what happens is you have like a Seung-Young Choi who gets hurt and doesn't participate one year.
Yeah.
So somebody else earns games points instead of this year. We have, and this was brought up earlier in the comments, 3 people pop for drugs in Asia. Yep. Now 5th place gets to go to the games and earn games points. That gives them such an advantage in the worldwide rankings that now we're starting to skew in a very bad direction.
I agree. I just think that they really needed to kind of start from scratch.
And in the last 5 minutes we have, what do you think is the optimal season structure to go from scratch, start over, and make this thing right?
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about it for a long time that I think we need a real season, that mirrors something similar to the PGA Tour or F1 or ATP, et cetera. We need, I know it's probably an unpopular, decision or an unpopular opinion, but I really do believe that the future of the sport does not lie in the hands of CrossFit. I think ultimately it's going to need to be a different entity that takes it over. And obviously we'll always champion the methodology, but I think that the sport needs to be led by a group that treats the sport as the primary focus and not as a way to draw people into affiliates. And I think that there needs to be a point system, a way to qualify through tiered events around the world. And I think that the CrossFit Games should be one of many Grand Slam events. I think you should have 4 in a season, where you're talking about, similar to golf and tennis, where you've got, whether it could be the ones that we have now, right? Wadapalooza, Rogue, the games, et cetera. But those are your Grand Slams. And that's what you're looking towards to be, the pinnacle of our sport. I think it would give the athletes an incredible opportunity to be professional athletes, to make money. I think it would give an incredible opportunity for sponsors and sponsorship at these big events, as opposed to just this one at the end of a season that's kind of fractured, because then you've got an off season with a lot of other big events, which creates a lack of an off season for athletes, which obviously long term is going to affect their health. So I think ultimately it's a season that's run by an organization that puts the sport first, and that's just my opinion. And people can call me stupid or whatever they want, but that's fine, because ultimately I just think I want to see this thing break out from just being a little niche thing that only we follow. I started watching another reality show last night on Netflix called Sprint, and it's about the best sprinters in the world, right? Noah Lyles, Kiri Richardson, et cetera. And then there's the Tour de France, and then there's Drive to Survive, and then there's Full Swing, and this sport and these athletes just lends itself so much to that style visibility and show they're superheroes, that superhumans doing superhuman things. And we're the only ones who know about it, you know, and the lack of visibility, the lack of, you know, media and content. Like there are people that are obviously trying, and I feel like they're getting met with resistance at every corner with what we saw at semifinals. I just don't understand it. I don't understand the plan. I don't know what we're doing. And it's frustrating to me, you know?
It's so funny because when a lot of people don't know, the PGA is an organization who leases out their name to have this pro golf tour, right? And then somebody else runs the PGA tour. They just bought the name off of the PGA organization. And then they have a PGA championship and the Masters and the US Open and the British Open. I think that is a perfect way to have a season. Yeah. And I think it's a perfect way to highlight the athletes much more and to allow them to make a living. Where currently we have one organization trying to run this whole thing and do something else on the side, which is actually their primary business. And they just keep tripping over their own toes.
They have a focus, and I understand that, and I respect it. And if you listen to Don Fall, he doesn't mince his words. He'll tell you, like, our goal is to get more butts into affiliates and get more people doing CrossFit. You know, we want to have more affiliates, more athletes doing CrossFit, because we feel like that's the way to living a healthy life. And I agree with that. I think that that's fantastic. I owned an affiliate for 10 years, and our motto was change your fitness, change your life. I totally understand that, and I agree with that. But he also, in the same conversation, will talk about how they're just, we still spend way too much money on sport. We're pulling more and more money out of sport. We're cutting this, we're cutting that. Okay. Well, if you're going to do that, then why not try and look at giving it to someone or having someone come in and purchase it, or you know, I'm not sure exactly, lease it, etc.
Lease out the name.
Yeah, but how about giving it to someone who wants to see it flourish and whose primary focus is sport? Because obviously, you know, it's not, and that's fine. But if that's the case, you know, I just feel like you got all these athletes who devoted their lives to this sport, and I'm kind of scared about where it's going to go. You know, I mean, I'm scared, honestly. It's a little bit scary to just see kind of, I think, a little bit of the regression, you know, that we've seen over the last few years. And you know, I mean, I've obviously put my heart and soul into it, and I'd love to see it flourish. So
me too. Without a sport, I don't have this.
Me either, bud.
Tristan Patrick, 100% need a structure like that.
Yeah, I agree.
And preach it. Well, Justin, as always, the hour freaking flies by every time.
Always does. Yeah.
And then we end up like cramming as much as we can in the last 5 minutes. But thank you so much for your time. As always, it's a blast having you on, and everybody in the chat. Thank you for jumping in. Sorry I couldn't get to all the questions. They were flying in faster than I could even read them.
Oh, cool. I appreciate that.
With that, I will see everybody next time on the Clydestone Media Podcast. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.